Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tusi TV, your global news channel. I'm Maya Tusi and this is your latest news update from the conflict between Russia and Ukraine as President Donald J. Trump shows his outrage and fury at Putin after his latest actions over the last few hours, and late last night as well. We had yet another massive attack on the capital of Ukraine. There is so much happening as the United States and the US government in general have now confirmed more urgent shipment of weapons and self-defense systems to Ukraine. Europeans are also essentially getting together for this emergency summit. We are going to bring you guys some footage as well. We have some the live feed, I believe. Yeah, this is from the Ukraine Recovery Conference, which is happening in Rome in Italy. We'll get back to that shortly because we've had a number of speeches already from this. But for now, let's talk about what's going on, especially since last night. Huge attack by the Russian forces on the Ukrainian capital. Most of it was ballistic missiles, but also some of the Iranian drones that the Russians have been using. So 6 Iskander ballistic missiles and between 50 to 100 IRGC drones were used by Russia. Let's go to the first video. It's absolutely insane, everything that's been going on since yesterday with the fresh wave of attacks, despite the negotiations, despite the so-called conversations between Rubio and the Russians. Now, the attack, the first wave in Ukraine, on Kiev, lasted around 10 hours. And the defense system was relatively okay, but they still caused a lot of damage. Now, we are going to talk about President Trump and his decision in terms of sending out, moving more of the US defense systems to Ukraine, because the Europeans are obviously discussing more funding for the recovery fund, as they call it, to send a lot of the European money to rebuild Ukraine. But that's in the future. That's not even right now because the war is still ongoing. President Trump is focusing on the military aspects of it rather than just the recovery fund. But we do have some more footage from Kiev. This is the aftermath, essentially. Let's go.
Ракета лежить. Зачехла, воно видно. Буквально за домом.
Now, we have to talk about the other news update that just came out literally as we were just getting ready to go live for you guys. We can now confirm that earlier this morning, the new wave of attacks and also assassinations essentially by the Russian forces in Ukraine resulted in this is the colonel of the security services of Ukraine who was killed this morning in Kiev. And I do believe we may have a short video. Actually, this is just we have some information about this right now. He was an unknown assailant. Essentially, we don't know the identity of the attacker. Of course, it's highly likely it's a Russian, obviously. The colonel was shot 5 times at a point-blank range with a silenced pistol and then fled. Voronezh died at the scene before the emergency services could even help. And of course, the murder of the SBU colonel has now been confirmed by the Ukrainian parliament. We will find out more information about who it was. Obviously, it's 99.99% Russian, but we don't know exactly what sort of element from the Russian forces managed to carry out this assassination, or perhaps it could still be a Ukrainian who is against the approach that the Ukrainian government is taking. There's a lot of division right now, internal division inside Ukraine. So obviously the Ukrainian government have the Russians to deal with, but they also have their own people to deal with. So there's a lot of chaotic situation, obviously, on the ground. Now, President Trump is not happy with Putin. When he was asked by the reporters, he did say, and I quote, "We get a lot of BS thrown at us by Putin. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be absolutely meaningless." We can actually show you the short video of the moment President Trump was saying, "I don't know what's going on with Putin."
I don't know. We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin. For you want to know the truth, he's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Do you want to sanction him? Lindsey Graham has a sanctions bill on Russia. Do you want him to move
I'm
that
looking
bill?
at it. Yeah, no, I'm looking. The Senate is passing and passed a very tough sanctions bill. Yeah, I'm looking at
Can
it.
you sign that?
It's
So that's the next move. Obviously, President Trump has already talked about extra sanctions on Russia. The fascinating thing about what Trump said and his fury, we get all these weird liberal media types who are going around saying, "Oh, Trump only has just discovered that Putin lies." I'm like, no. This is his language and his rhetoric, the way Trump works. He's not surprised. This is exactly how he speaks, to ensure that the Kremlin watchers, and they actually know that Trump is trying to be the sensible one, and he's saying, "Well, I thought Putin was being nice, but seems to be meaningless." It's part of geopolitical tactics. That's all it is. Trump is not stupid. It's not like, "Oh, I finally discovered that Putin is a politician who lies." All politicians lie. Everybody knows. It's not really a big surprise. Now, there's been an exclusive audio that has now been released. This was Trump speaking at a fundraiser a few months ago. This is in 2024, towards the end. And because before that, he publicly did say a lot that I have threatened Putin, but he didn't say exactly what he said to Putin. But in this fundraiser, when he was speaking to the donors, he did mention that I told Putin I will bomb the S out of Moscow if you don't stop. Let's quickly go to that audio that CNN released and has been verified and confirmed. It's not fake.
To Putin, I said, if you go in to Ukraine, we're going to bomb the shit out of Moscow. I'm telling you, I have no choice. The public wants it. The public. So he goes like, I don't believe you. He said, no way. And I said, way. And then he goes like, I don't believe you, but the truth is he believed me 10%. I told you this, he believed me 10%. Then I'm with President Xi of China, but I said the same thing to them. I said, if you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Beijing. He thought I was crazy. He said, Beijing, you're going to bomb Beijing. I said, I have no choice. I got to bomb it. We're going to bomb Beijing. And he didn't believe either, except 10%. And 10% is all you need. In fact, 5% would have been okay too. And we never had a problem. We would have never had a problem.
Yeah, so obviously things would have been different if Trump were president at the time. And we've already seen his tactics being used against the Islamic Republic, against everybody else, against the Houthis in Yemen. And they all do freak out because they don't exactly know what he's going to do. Because he's known to be anti-war, but he's not an isolationist. He's a practical president when it comes to geopolitics. So if he obviously goes out saying, I am 100% anti-war, I will never even defend anybody, then obviously that just sends a message to the world, you can do whatever you want to do. But the world leaders know he's not an isolationist. He says, ideally, I don't want a conflict. But obviously he says, if you cross the line, I will come and bomb you. So that's why they don't know exactly where they stand with him, because it's not predictable for your conventional type of political leaders. Marco Rubio also came out to speak about the policy decision in terms of pausing the shipment of weapons to Ukraine and then doing it again. He was saying that the US government always and the department always reviews the situations in terms of sending weapons to anybody really, and to try to find creative ways to send these weapons, defense weapons. And he did clarify these are defense, not for offensive attacks. Let's quickly go to Marco Rubio.
No. I said it was a review. It was a pause pending review. And so we were constantly, the Pentagon is constantly reviewing stockpiles. especially after an engagement such as the one we had in the Middle East. So my point is that there wasn't a policy decision not to give weapons to Ukraine. It was a review in which certain munitions were temporarily paused for that review and for that purpose. And this reporting out there that there was no awareness of it is not true. Now, but no policy decision was made. In essence, no one ever said we're not sending weapons to Ukraine. That's been appropriated by Congress, and that's continued. And that continues to this very day. But when you're doing a review, there's some period of time in which during that review, it's possible that some shipping is slowed down, not stopped, but because it's being...
Yeah, he's right. I mean, when you think about the approach that the Europeans have taken compared to the US administration under Trump, and especially obviously Marco Rubio and his decision making is slightly different. We're actually getting more transparency from the Americans right now than obviously under Biden. But the clarification that obviously defense weapons is one thing. And if you're going to give offensive weapons, and President Trump has also indicated before that he did lift the ban essentially and gave the green light to Ukraine to use certain things to attack as a counter-offensive. But that was a short space of time. This was about a month ago. Now, obviously, after Russia launched the 400 drones and obviously 18 ballistic missiles, 18 missiles, some of them were ballistic missiles. This was one of the heaviest assaults on the capital. Zelensky has called it a clear escalation of terror, blasting Moscow for turning mass drone strikes into a nightly routine. He said that this demands that we speed things up. Now, I'm not really sure exactly what Zelensky is talking about when he says speed things up, because if we are talking about diplomacy, and this is the whole push by Marco Rubio, Donald Trump and everybody else in the US, they are currently talking to the nutters in Russia, but that's diplomacy. If the push is still to do diplomacy, and while you do diplomacy, you can still do self-defense, right? That's one thing. But when Zelensky says speed things up, not really sure if he's talking about diplomacy. Because every single time, obviously he says, well, we have to hit back. Okay, sure. Where's the end goal? How hard can Ukraine actually go into Russia? Now, if you're going to say we will stand here and defend ourselves, that's fine. That was, technically speaking, the position from Iran during the 7-8 year war with Iraq, when Saddam Hussein invaded Iran. And of course, the Iranian regime were defending, and they were all over the place. And it's still impressive that Iran managed to not lose to Iraq. That was mostly because they got a lot of young people to jump on mines and brainwash them essentially to become martyrs against Iraq. But technically the position from Iran was, we will continue to defend ourselves. Now, there was a point where Iran essentially did attack Iraq. They did go into Iraq a little bit, but it was mostly, we're going to stand here and defend our territory and our borders. So it seems like when Zelensky says speed things up, he says it's talking about militarily. Like, if you're saying, well, military actions, well, how? What is the plan? Can you actually defeat Putin? Can you go and take over Moscow? Well, if you can, try. But if you can't, then you can't give... I mean, it should be logic when it comes to war and any sort of conflict. But that's what obviously Zelensky is saying. And obviously today, one of Russia's most notorious prisons was actually set on fire. This is the White Swan prison, for those who are familiar. And now the cause of the fire, still unknown. According to the emergency services, the fire has engulfed around 800 square meters. Now, the White Swan obviously houses Russia's most dangerous criminals, violent criminals. We do have a short video from this mysterious fire that happened this morning. Now, the Russian government have said they are investigating this, so we'll find out exactly what this... I mean, it's just a coincidence that a lot of accidental fires happen left, right, and center these days. But there was also the meeting between Lavrov and Rubio today, and we can actually give you some summary of what was actually discussed. So it did last about just under an hour, and it did take place obviously at the backdrop of the US-Russia relationship getting worse. There was a recent phone call between Putin and Trump, as you guys know, which had no result. Obviously, President Trump slammed Putin, saying that he's talking BS. Following this meeting, Rubio and the US want to see a roadmap to end the war in Ukraine, and added that Trump is disappointed at the lack of flexibility from the Russian side, saying that the Russians clearly don't want peace. We are offering peace, and they are not willing to do it. So obviously, Trump is now going to be putting more pressure, potential sanctions, sending more weapons to Ukraine. The Ukrainian side have finally, technically, the Ukrainian government and the army, we're not talking about Zelensky himself, but the collective rhetoric now is, we are ready for peace, right? Now, that's on the surface. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of people, the element in the Ukrainian army would say, well, we can't really trust peace, we need to keep hitting, right? Try to hit while defend ourselves. Overall, the public rhetoric is, well, Ukraine is potentially ready for peace. Russia, until a few months ago, a year ago, was saying, well, yeah, we could consider this, but every option that the White House is now giving to the Kremlin, Team Putin keeps saying no. So they're not willing to even discuss the beginning of any sort of roadmap for peace. Now, if they don't want peace, they need to also have a plan, because they can't keep spending money and buying stupid drones from Iran that don't even fully work. And now, all that aside, the Europeans, oh God. Now, Friedrich Merz of Germany has been relatively robust, but he does speak as if he's running Europe. Now, at this point, the European Union is fully controlled by the dictatorship under Ursula von der Leyen. Yes, Ursula von der Leyen is German, but doesn't really mean she's directly connected to the German government. In fact, the French these days have more influence than the Germans in the European Union since the days of Angela Merkel. Anyway, Friedrich Merz stood up and sent a message to both Trump and Putin separately. It doesn't really help when Merz speaks like this. I understand what they're trying to do, but if you're trying to send a message to Putin as your rival, okay, then don't add it in the same sentence. Also a message, a warning to President Trump. Do it separately, because now it seems like it's Europe versus Russia and the US. It's weird. Watch this.
In finalizing, I have two messages. The one goes to Moscow and to President Putin.
Fair.
The message is quite simple. We will not give up.
Okay. But get on with it.
And dear friends, my second message goes to Washington, D.C. and to President Donald Trump. Stay with us and stay with the Europeans. We are on the same page, and we are looking for a stable political order in this world. We are both, the Americans and the Europeans, are part of with us. Stay with us on this side.
You see the problem, right? Okay, anyway, Friedrich Merz, while being relatively robust, doesn't really help in the situation. Having said that, the British government, who, by the way, as we speak right now, I'm going to show you the live feed that we have. We are now waiting for the press conference between Macron and Starmer. They have not arrived yet. This is obviously the summit that is happening today. We will get back to that later. But if we focus on what is happening with the United Kingdom, the British government have now also confirmed, backed by Labour, Reform UK and the Tories, the UK government have announced that it will sign a defence agreement with Ukraine to supply more than 5,000 air defence missiles, but also said that it would provide Ukraine with up to £283 million, that's $383 million in foreign aid. This is not any loan, this is just free money to Ukraine, so about 400 million. Now this decision by the British government has been backed, as I said, by both the Labour Party, Reform UK and the Tory Party, the main three parties obviously in Parliament, in British Parliament, are on the same page when it comes to the support for Ukraine. Seems to be unconditional support, essentially. But we don't really have any sort of scrutiny when it comes to the funds. That's the only issue that we have when it comes to the British government. Now, whatever your view is in terms of as I say, sending defense weapons, that's one thing. Sending, giving loan is another thing, but also sending free foreign aid is another thing, right? Whatever your view is, whether you should do that, whether you should do that one or not that one in terms of the options to support Ukraine, the problem is you still have to ensure that there is scrutiny in your own parliament and your senate, wherever you are, in any country. The problem with British Parliament is that there is no real scrutiny. It's the same situation we had under Joe Biden for years and years, for the last, well, for 4 years of his presidency. There was a lot of money that were missing, and we don't exactly know, and we can't really trust the British bureaucrats. The UK civil servants, they're not very good at anything. So we don't know exactly how much of the money will actually be used properly for the Ukrainian people, right? Anyway, that said, we will focus on some of the reaction from you lovely humans, because Ivan in the super chat saying, and the left insists that Trump is pro-Putin. It's funny. It's getting old. It's getting boring. But some still believe that, which is kind of, I don't know why. The EU on the same page. What has he been drinking? The thing about the issue with the way the left, for example, would see Trump is that they don't like anything if the White House says or does something correct that usually they agree with, like the liberal media and the liberal parties. They tend not to even talk about it. Like, well, it's going to be very embarrassing. For example, President Trump is extremely against BRICS, rightly so, because BRICS is there to undermine the dollar supremacy. And he threatens any country that deals with BRICS, saying, well, if you go against the dollar, then we're going to come for you. Now, usually, if for example, a US Democrat would have said that as president, oh, they would have loved it. Now, obviously, the US presidents would not say that. The Democrats would not say that because publicly they say, yes, we like America. We're against China. We're against Russia. Behind closed doors, they still do deals with the CCP or the Islamic Republic. So the liberal globalists on the US Democrat side, the Labour Party in Britain, another country, and obviously the liberals in Canada, they say one thing, but actually behind closed doors, they are dealing with the same nutters. Whereas, obviously, when President Trump is actually defending the dollar against BRICS, they say, yeah, we shouldn't really praise that because Trump is saying it. Anyway, the whole thing is absolutely insane. Let me just get some couple of non-super chats. What is this? Bowser Heritage says the UK should stop sending billions to foreign countries. I mean, there should also be, we have to have this balanced conversation now about foreign aid, specifically the handouts to other countries. If your country, if you're in a situation, for example, the United States of America in the early 20th century, right, just before the crash, if the US had decided to be, I don't know, humanitarian and help people, then fine, because you already have your own house in order. Everything's fine, mostly. We don't have money. The UK government doesn't have money. The Canadians seem to be all over the place. The French and the Germans are in massive debt. So if you can't look after your own people first, how can you look after your, well, neighbors or your friends or your allies, wherever they are? It becomes problematic because then where is the line? Because if you're going to support this, but are you also going to support and get involved with the conflict in Sudan? What about Yemen? What about all the other places around the world? So, I mean, you have to pick that side. One thing is about the military support. You could have a debate about that. But one thing is about giving free money when you don't have money. That is a big problem. Anyway, I'm going to go back to my holiday. We're still in España. And, well, later on we're going to come back and probably talk about Reform UK, because they have made a major shift, political shift, from being a right-wing party, or centre-right, to a more liberal centrist party. We will talk about that later. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.